Poe is back for another adventure. The Dragon Warrior's latest film, Kick Butt. Let's talk about it now. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass. Today I'm here to talk to you about Kung Fu Panda 4, which comes to theaters on March 8th, 2024. It is the fourth movie in the Kung Fu Panda series. I love the Kung Fu Panda series. It might be my favorite animated series of all time. All the films are really fun. I like the characters. I like Jack Black as the Kung Fu Panda. It is a fun adventure. Now, this is the newest film, and it's been a decade. It's been 10 years since Kung Fu Panda 3. Is this up to snuff? Does this continue a good tradition of the series? Well, my hot take is yes, I think it does. You should definitely watch it. It's just a good sequel to an entertaining series. It has plenty of references to the original movies, so you'll see characters, you'll see events, you'll see places, and it also has the same kind of humor and heart, but this actually has a little bit more action than those movies and some new characters. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. I thought it was a good kind of sequel to a series I already liked. So I definitely think you should check it out. Now, if you're wondering, is this going to be okay for kids? Well, yeah, of course it's going to be okay for kids. It's a Kung Fu Panda movie. It's an animated film. It's got, some scary situations. It does have like martial arts action. So I guess if you don't like that, then don't take your kids. But overall, I think it's fine for all kids. I took my kids to it. They enjoyed it. So fine for kids. Definitely watch it. I'm going to tell you a little about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really, really quickly go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off when I get there. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So, in Kung Fu Panda 4, you have Po, who is a Dragon Warrior. He's established himself as a Dragon Warrior. He is a hero of the Valley of Peace. He is a hero to everyone. He loves his new role, but unfortunately for Po, Master Sifu tells him now it is time for you to move on. You have to choose a successor to be the Dragon Warrior, and you have to become the spiritual leader of the valley, which is essentially what Oogway was. Oogway was the spiritual leader. He was kind of the wise one, the one that was training others to kind of take on the mantle. But Po doesn't want to do this. Po loves being the Dragon Warrior. He loves this role. It's the role that he knows, the role that he's good at. So he doesn't really want to do this. Now, luckily for him, a new threat arises that requires a Dragon Warrior. So he rushes off to do this, but does his haste to fight this new threat actually come back to hurt him? Well, you'll have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, okay, it's an animated film. I love the animation. I thought it was good. I really liked how it looked like the previous movies, except updated a little more. It still had the same kind of style, the same characters, the same animation feel, but it just is a little bit higher quality. There's some really nice lighting. There's some really good fur, as you would imagine in a Kung Fu Panda movie. It looks like an updated version of the earlier movies, which is great. I like that they kept the styles consistent. They didn't try to do anything too different. And so it is beautiful. It is what you know. It is just a great kind of, it just kind of continues the tradition. The second thing I love the references. It has lots of references to the previous Kung Fu Panda movies. You've got characters that are in there. You've got places that we've visited. You've got events that happen. You have jokes from the earlier movies that make appearances in this film. If you've seen the other movies, you will enjoy them as well. It'll kind of put a smile on your face. And I do like that there's some continuity in both the story and the events that happen. The third thing I love the action. I felt that this movie had more action than the previous movies. I think because Po is already the Dragon Warrior, because he's already well established, you kind of jump right into some of the action. So you have a lot of it up front, and it seems like Po is confident through most of it. So there's a decent amount of fighting, and Po feels like a kind of seasoned veteran, even though he's still Po, so still does some silly things. He feels like he is a seasoned action veteran, and that means that there is just kind of more action throughout this film, which is great. It's really, really nicely done. Like I said, the animation's really great, so the action looks fantastic. The fourth thing I love, and this is something I didn't really expect, I love the music. There's some really fun music in here. There's two specific songs I noticed that are like remakes of classic songs. So at one point in the movie, there is like a kind of like, I don't know, Chinese orchestral remake of Crazy Train, which was really, really fun to hear if you recognize it. And the credit song is just fantastic. It's one of my favorite credit songs I've ever heard. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is here. I'll tell you about that in the spoilers. And the last thing I love the humor. Kung Fu Panda is kind of a nice mix of action and humor, and this film is no different. There are plenty of laugh out loud moments. There are plenty of funny references and funny events that happen. So it's definitely one that's going to make you smile, make you chuckle as the action happens. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much about the movie, there wasn't much. There was one minor thing. It does feel like it kind of resolved itself a little bit too quickly. The final fight is actually pretty good. It's a nice kind of long fight, but then it feels like the resolution happens a little bit too easy. And that is kind of a hallmark of Kung Fu Panda. You'll have a really, really big buildup, and then all of a sudden there's some revelation, and that just means that the final, like the final resolution to the encounter is a little bit simpler than I was hoping for. But all that being said, I did actually enjoy the final fight, so it was just a very, very minor point. So Kung Fu Panda 4 comes to theaters on March 8th, 2024. Definitely think you should check it out. Take your kids. It'll be a fun kind of movie for the whole family. That being said, I'm going to talk about the film and the ending right now. So if you don't want to happen to this movie, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So, like I said, Master Sifu is telling Po that he has to become the spiritual leader. He has to move on. He has to pass the Dragon Warrior mantle to someone else, and he has to become the spiritual leader for the valley. Which I thought was kind of weird because Po is like the Dragon Warrior. He is like the pinnacle. He should be the top person in this kind of, I don't know, kung fu organization, kung fu structure. And Master Sifu is still telling him what to do. I thought that was a little bit odd because I feel like Po should be the one who can dictate what is happening. But look, Master Sifu is always probably going to be his master, and so he is telling Po what has to happen. Po doesn't want this, but he goes along. He auditions some kung fu warriors to see. They all are very, very impressive, but he says that, none of them spoke to him, and also he doesn't want to give up the mantle. Now, luckily for him, later on, there is a thief named Jen who is a fox ninja thief who is trying to steal some things from the Jade Palace. And Po goes and confronts her. They have a nice little fight, and Po is able to capture her, throws her in prison. Now, also, we find out that Tai Lung is back. The movie actually starts with Tai Lung attacking a like iron mine, and he takes out the guards. He takes all the iron. He destroys the mine. He says that the valley will be his. But Tai Lung looks a little different. He has like scales where normally he would have fur, which is a very subtle touch, but something that you would notice. And also, you'll notice scales in like the Kung Fu Panda poster. There's some scales on there. So if you're looking out for that, you see that maybe Tai Lung, something has happened to Tai Lung. He's changed a little bit. Now, Po gets this news when Jen is in prison, and Jen seems to know a little bit more about what has happened. She kind of infers that she has more knowledge about Tai Lung's return and who could be behind that. So, and she says that maybe it wasn't Tai Lung who's back. Maybe it was uh, a different villain who is able to shapeshift, called the Chameleon. She can take on the form of many others, and maybe she is behind this. And Jen also conveniently knows where she is. Jen says that she can take Po to the Chameleon, and Poe's initially reluctant, but he goes along anyways because he has to. He's got to stop Tai Lung. He's got to figure out what happens. And he wants one more adventure. He wants something that only the Dragon Warrior can do. So he wants to delay naming a successor and go off and be the Dragon Warrior one last time. Now, Po and Jen make their way to Juniper City, which is a very, very big city that I guess is near the Valley of Peace. And while they're there, Po and Jen kind of learn more about each other. Jen is pretty impressed with Po because Po actually seems like a nice guy. She said that other Kung Fu masters that she's met have seemed more strict and serious, whereas Po just seems like a genuinely good person, which he is. And then Po is trying to prevent Jen from kind of doing what she does. She is a thief. She grew up on the streets. She kind of has honed those skills. And so she is kind of always trying to play the angles, always trying to steal. And Po is trying to stop her because he doesn't want to steal. He wants to do this the right way. He wants to stop the Chameleon, but he doesn't want Jen to like fall back into her old habits. So they're pretty good for each other. They have this adventure. They have some fights. They have some obstacles. They eventually go back to Jen's like home base, this like den of thieves where she grew up, where there are some really fun characters. There's a pangolin who's like the leader of the den of thieves. There's these three like crazy bunnies that are cute but also really dangerous, which are fun characters. But eventually they make their way to the Chameleon, and when they get there, Po gets trapped in this like giant cage. And after Poe's captured, we see the Chameleon, and Po tells Jen that she has to go and stop the Chameleon. He gives Jen the Staff of Wisdom, the like jade staff that Master Uwe had, who gave to Po, and now Po as a Dragon Warrior is giving it to Jen. You think, okay, maybe this will be Jen's moment to shine. Maybe this will be Jen's time to like take on the Dragon Warrior mantle, because that's kind of where it feels like it is going. But now we have this big turn. Jen then goes and gives the staff to the Chameleon, and we find out that Jen was kind of not very truthful with Po. I mean, she was raised in that den of thieves for a little bit, but eventually she got recruited by the Chameleon and was raised by the Chameleon. The Chameleon is the one who kind of like really honed her skills, really kind of taught her everything she knew. And so this whole thing was a ruse to get the Staff of Wisdom from Po to the Chameleon, because the Staff of Wisdom can't be taken, it has to be given. And so when Po gave it to Jen to use, she then gave it to the Chameleon, and now the Chameleon has the Staff of Wisdom. Now, how would she want the Staff of Wisdom, you ask? Well, she apparently has always wanted to learn Kung Fu, and she was not able to for various reasons. It sounds like her story is similar to Poe's. Like, no one took her seriously. She was considered too small. Poe was considered too big. She was never able to, like, get someone to train her to be a Kung Fu warrior. So she decided to learn a different skill. She decided to learn sorcery. And so she became a very, very accomplished sorceress. She is able to shapeshift. She's able to use magic powers. But apparently she always wanted that kung fu. I guess that is just so intoxicating that she, even though she is this like super powerful shapeshifter who could shapeshift into anything that she wants and essentially take whatever she wants, she doesn't have the skills of a kung fu warrior. So she can look like one, but she won't be able to fight like one. So she is going to use the Staff of Wisdom to open a portal to the spirit realm, get the kung fu warriors from the spirit realm over the kung fu masters, and steal their kung fu. A very convoluted plan. Seems like it probably took more effort to do that than just to learn kung fu, but I guess this is what she wants to do. So she is going to do that. Now, Poe is feeling very, very hurt because his friend Jen, who he thought was his friend, has now betrayed him. Uh, the chameleon seems like she is going to kill Poe or at least hurt him, and Poe is able to escape. He can't break out of the cage, but he can go down. So he breaks the floor, falls down, fights his way out. And as he's fighting his way out of the palace, he sees Jen come up again with the staff. She comes up to him and says, like, we can still take on the chameleon. Like, I'm sorry. And then that's when we see Jen as well behind him. And she says, Poe, wait, stop. That's a chameleon. And the Jen with the staff, who came up earlier, now is the chameleon. She pushes Poe off of a ledge. He falls. Will he be okay? We'll see. We'll see if the Dragon Warrior is able to withstand this. Spoiler, he's able to, with the help of his dads who have been following him along the way. We find out that Poe like grabbed onto a tree. His dads are able to pull him up from this ledge, and he is going to go and try to take on the chameleon. Not because he thinks he can win, because now she has the power of all these kung fu masters, but because he has to try. Now, when the chameleon pushed Poe off the ledge, that triggered something in Jen. Jen already didn't love this arrangement. I think she really liked with being with Poe. She really liked how he treated her, how he was very, very good and nice to her. The chameleon is a very strict teacher, one that is teaching her to do all sorts of bad things, and Jen doesn't really like this. So, but she, the chameleon raised her, so she did what she needed to do. She followed the chameleon's rules. But when the chameleon tried to kill Poe, that is what kind of triggered something in Jen. And so Jen no longer wants to be working with the chameleon. The chameleon doesn't care. The chameleon has what the chameleon wants. She has the staff. She is getting the kung fu magic, the kung fu power from the kung fu masters. So Jen decides to leave. Now she runs into Poe. Poe, as she's leaving, Poe is coming back in to fight, and Jen tries to stop Poe. They have a little fight while she is trying to tell Poe to not do it. Like, he's just going to kill himself. And then finally, at the end of the fight, it looks like she's going to do one final move. Poe gets ready and she gives him a hug and she says, I don't want you to do it because she doesn't want to lose her friend. But unfortunately for her, Poe has to do this because that's what the Dragon Warrior does. So Poe keeps going on to go fight, and Jen decides that she's going to help. She and the dads decide to go down to Den of Thieves, get their friends, get the people that apparently had like an antagonistic relationship with Jen, but she convinces them to come and help, and they all go up to help storm the castle and help Poe. They have a fight with the guards. Poe is able to sneak into the castle, and he is able to confront the chameleon. Now, the chameleon has all these magical, like, kung fu powers and the Staff of Wisdom. What does Poe have? Well, Poe is still the Dragon Warrior, so he is still confident. They have a fight, and I really like this part because it felt very much like the previous Kung Fu Panda movies. Like, the chameleon is able to, like, shapeshift into the various Kung Fu masters that she has taken their powers from, and so she, like, shapeshifts into Tai Lung and uses, like, Tai Lung's pressure point techniques, and she shapeshifts into some other masters that you've heard about and uses their techniques. And while this is happening, and while Poe is getting like hit by this, he is still in awe of all these kung fu masters that he has seen and kind of like fighting against, because he's fighting against their like kung fu powers. And so when the chameleon uses the powers on Poe, Poe is just so excited. He's like, oh, like the jaws of fury, oh, the like antlers of death. Like it is very much like the previous Kung Fu Panda movies, where when even though Po is getting like hurt, he is still so enraptured with kung fu and these masters that he's heard about that he can't help but be excited now. And Po is able to hold his own against the chameleon, even though the chameleon's using all these powers. And then Jen pops in and helps him out. I think she hits the chameleon or hits her from behind. And so now it's Po and Jen versus the chameleon. And the chameleon's like, oh, like, well, the two against one. Now this is going to be interesting. And then she starts like transforming into a conglomeration of all the kung fu masters, which I thought was going to be kind of cool. Like it would have been, she has like the antlers of one of the kung fu masters and like the jaws of another and the wings of a different master. It sounds really cool, but it eventually just ends up being like her transforming into this like giant dragon thing that has actually no kung fu, which I was a little disappointed with. I wanted her to like be this super warrior, and it just turned into like this giant dragon that started attacking Po with no kung fu, just like normal like swipes and draws and stuff like that. And so they have a fight. They kind of Po is holding his own. But eventually, Po gets slammed in the ground, and pieces of the original cage that had held him get like thrown at him, and they get kind of like fused together into a new cage around him. And he can't get out of it. It is infused with magic from the chameleon because of her sorcery powers. So he can't like actually fight through it. And so he has to entrust Jen. And even though Jen has backstabbed him before, he now still trusts her. He still thinks that she's a good person. So he gives her the staff of wisdom. He got it back from the chameleon earlier on because the chameleon didn't need it anymore because she had all the magic kung fu powers. So he gives Jen the staff of wisdom. Jen is now fighting her former mentor, her like surrogate mother almost, the chameleon. They have a fight. The chameleon seems to have the upper hand because hey, she taught Jen everything she knew. She knows what she's gonna do. But then Jen is like, there is one move you haven't taught me. And then she starts using the staff of wisdom to do this like dragon spirit move where she essentially like summons forth power to take the form of a dragon spirit. And she does this move, boom, it hits the chameleon, and apparently that just like knocks her out, which was a little disappointing. Like, I don't know. Uh, if Poe knew that move, Poe should have done that earlier. Or like it feels like it was just like one magical move that just like stopped the whole fight, even though they already had a bunch of different fights, and even though the chameleon had the upper hand the entire time, this one like magic move stops the chameleon. So Jen is pretty happy that this happened. Jen is pretty happy that she was able to take out the chameleon. And then she feels something on her shoulder. And look, it's Poe. Poe says, "Good job." And she's like, "Wait, you could get out of there all along?" He's like, "Yeah, I could, but if I would have done it, then you wouldn't have been able to step up." A lot of this film talks about how like you don't really know what you can do until you have to do it, and it's about Poe like letting go of being a dragon warrior and trusting it to someone else. And so, in this step, he did. Apparently, he could have gotten out of the cage the entire time, which I don't know, conflicts with some of the things that happened earlier when he was trying to get out of the cage and he wasn't able to. But apparently he could, and so he knew that Jen would be able to handle the warrior that he couldn't handle, and so he entrusted her, and she rose to the occasion, clearly showing that she is able to kind of like handle this and probably be the dragon warrior. Now, she still doesn't have all the powers of Dragon Warrior. She's still not the Dragon Warrior. So Poe then, takes the staff back, or I guess gets it back. Jen gives it back to him, and he uses it to open a portal back into the spirit realm and send the Kung Fu Masters back to the spirit realm. Now, before that, though, there's this really cool scene where all the Kung Fu Masters that were summoned are impressed with Poe. He was able to handle the situation. He was able to like stop the chameleon, who none of them could stop, and so they all bow to him, which I thought was really cool. It is definitely like the culmination of what Poe would always want, all these like mythical, magical, amazing kung fu masters showing him respect. This must be the coolest thing ever for Poe. They do that. They go back to the spirit realm. Tai Lung, basically compliments Poe. He says, good job. Like I guess Oogway chose right for the Dragon Warrior. And he says, I'll see you on the other side. So it seems like maybe Poe and Tai Lung will maybe friends, maybe respect each other. Maybe they'll just spar in the spirit realm eventually. But either way, Poe's gonna be happy about that. And when Tai Lung goes back to the spirit realm, he takes the chameleon with him. So now that threat is handled, and so everyone heads home. When they get back, Jen still has, the prison term from her first heist from the Jade Palace. And so she says, "Hey, after my prison term, maybe we could hang out more. Maybe you could teach me some kung fu." And Poe is like, I got a better idea. I think you're due for an upgrade. And so he points up to the Jade Palace, and it seems like he is ready to pass the mantle on to Jen, the new Dragon Warrior. But not yet. First, she has to train, and that is when we see the Furious Five back. They were strangely absent from this movie. I think probably budget. Maybe they couldn't get all the voice actors back. This had a very kind of light voice acting crew. So for some reason, the Furious Five weren't in this movie, but now they're back briefly at least. You get to at least see them. They don't really talk, again, because I don't think they were able to get the voice actors. But the Furious Five are there. They are there to help train Jen, and they have a training sequence that's very similar to how Poe trained initially. Jen is much more skilled than Poe, so she's able to hold her own better, but she still has the same kind of pitfalls that Poe has. And we see that Poe is training her up to be the new Dragon Warrior to pass on the mantle, and Poe is ready to take on the role of spiritual leader of the valley. And the movie concludes with Master Sifu trying to meditate. And I think the Peach Tree of Wisdom, whatever the peach tree is that's in a lot of the movies, at least the first one. And as he's trying to meditate and being distracted by all the things in his head, the camera pans out and we see the peach tree that was planted originally, like in the first Kung Fu Panda, when the Master Uwe was trying to teach Master Sifu about something, and he talked about the peach pit and how it could grow, and then Master Sifu planted it right in the ground really quickly. We see that that tree has grown up a little bit, which symbolizes Poe, and then next to that is a smaller little kind of sapling that is growing up as well, a smaller little like baby tree that is growing, which is apparently going to be the new Kung Fu Master, the new Dragon Warrior Jen. So that is the conclusion of Kung Fu Panda 4. And like I said, the credit music is fantastic. It is Jack Black doing a cover of Hit Me Baby One More Time. I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. I like the original, and I like Jack Black's version as well. It was a really kind of fun way to conclude this series. There are no stingers at the end of the credits, so you don't have to stay for everything, but there are some fun animated sequences before the end of the credits. So you can stay for like the first, like, you stay for the first little bit of the credits, listen to the Jack Black song as we see Jen training, and then once those are done, you can head out. But that is Kung Fu Panda 4. Like I said, it comes to theaters on March 8th, 2024. Definitely check it out. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great kind of like sequel to this series I already enjoy. So if you're like Kung Fu Panda, or if you got kids, or hey, you like animated movies, check it out. So thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.